Revenge films.
I confronted my husband's lover, and she sued me. I'm Sarah, 24 years old and a full-time worker. My husband Jack is 3 years older than me, and we don't have kids yet. We met through my friend 2 years ago. He asked me out rather aggressively, and we started dating. I just broke up with my ex-boyfriend then, and I was a little anxious about finding a future husband because of my age. I'm not saying whoever, but I didn't think too much about the person himself when I started dating him. When he proposed to me just after 3 months, I thought that it must be fate. The length of time we were together before marriage didn't matter much, or so I thought. Then we got married. We were dating for only 3 months, and we were passionate. I think that clouded my judgment about him as a person because I see that now more clearly. I have a friend who got married around the same time we got married. The more I heard her story, the more I felt that way. They would go out as they were dating and watch movies together at home on their days off. They go grocery shopping together, and her husband carries the heavy bags. I couldn't help but be jealous. Because Jack seemed no different after we got married, I wonder if he was aware he got married. He behaved as if he was a bachelor. He prioritized his social meetings over me, and he would easily cancel what I had planned for us. When I planned the dinner with my parents, "Sorry, but I'm not in the mood. You go ahead." Once we get married, we have family obligations, but he has no concerns about it and thinks only about himself. It made no difference to me from when I was single and I ate dinner by myself most days. He was a social type from the start, but I wished he would change his lifestyle for me, at least during the honeymoon period. But I started to have doubts about him having an affair in time. When he was home, all he did was do something with his smartphone. He locks his phone before going to bed. He takes his phone to take a bath. It was very suspicious. When I told this to my friend, she said the same thing. A similar thing happened to her sister, whose husband had an affair last year. His sister hired an investigator, and I was advised to do the same because it would clear my doubts I had. So I stepped into the office of a private investigation agency for the first time in my life. I thought that it only existed in TV and movies. I never imagined I would need that kind of service one day. After a month, they did an impressive job of discovering Jack's affair. I even saw the woman who was a receptionist at Jack's company. They didn't even hide, but openly dated in public places or even kissing in his car. I was rather amazed that they were having an affair so openly. There was clear proof of the photo of them entering a hotel. I had a mixed feeling of shock and a confirmation of my doubts. It was an indescribable, confusing feeling. We were newlyweds then, but now that I had all the cards I needed, I couldn't stay quiet. I thrust these photos to Jack. He admitted it immediately and apologized to me. That wasn't enough for me, of course. I didn't mind divorcing him, but he had to pay for what he did first. I demanded to have a meeting with the three of us with his lover. As I studied him so far, he was a clear womanizer. There was a chance his lover was fooled by him. If that was the case, she could be a victim as well. And the three of us had a meeting the following week. "I'm sorry for what happened." She apologized to me right away. From that, she didn't seem like such a bad person. Maybe Jack lied to her about our marriage, but an affair was an affair, and I was still taking control. I asked her if she knew Jack was married. If she didn't, I would settle for compensation only. Otherwise, I wanted to tell their company and destroy their lives, so that was my compromised offer. And I heard something unexpected from her. "Compensation? Does that mean I have to pay you money?" Yeah, it's only logical. You had an affair, and that's how it works." "But I apologized to you. Isn't that enough? I just went out with him a few times." "Oh no, what is she talking about? Was she born yesterday?" I explained to her how she was responsible for compensation. I know I had an affair, but what you're doing to me is a threat. If you insist, I'll go to the police and tell them I was threatened by you." I didn't know what to say to her. She was serious. Even Jack was surprised by her. I could see remorse in Jack, but not in this woman. Then I had to go all the way. I told her to go to the police or wherever. I knew they wouldn't do anything for her, 100%. Then she said with a smile, "You'll be the one who cries and pays," and left. I was astonished by this woman rather than angry. I forgot to talk more about her accountability. And she really went to the police to file a report. But the police officer couldn't deal with the child, naturally. They simply told her that if she had an affair, it is customary to be prosecuted for her actions. If that was a threat, all the real victims of the adultery would be arrested, and that's unthinkable. Good job, Mr. Policeman. But she moved on to her next plan. That was her hiring a lawyer to sue me. I couldn't be quiet about this, so I took up her fight. I talked to her lawyer and asked what had been going on. I told him what she said and did, including storming into the police station. Then I guess he didn't see a case. He quickly backed off, but she didn't give up easily and knocked on a few more doors of the law office before ending up in vain. A few days later, she came to plead with me with a completely different attitude. She said all the law offices said the same thing, that she was the one who did the wrongdoing and the law was not on her side. She finally got it and is now begging me to forget about it. Are you kidding? Including this extra drama, I pressed charges for both of them. I also told their company about it. She was too embarrassed to stay there and quickly resigned. Jack worked at the same company, so of course he was a target of gossip as well. But with no real prospect of his next job, he chose to stay. But it seemed really hard for him to stay there and take the blame, so he started seeing a therapist and was prescribed tranquilizer pills. We were newlyweds, so they were even colder to him. I was well compensated by both of them and moved to a new apartment right away. It was determined 100% Jack's fault. Everyone was sympathetic and kind to me, which helped me move on. I became a divorcee, but I'm not giving up hope. I'll just be really careful next time. One day, my friend Nancy texted me that she saw my husband and Bishy walking together. My husband, Bishy, Nancy, and I all went to the same university. Bishy was also married, but I had always heard bad rumors about her. Bishy always loved people's things, and because she had a great body as well, I've seen many girls cry after she stole their boyfriends from them. After stealing them from the girls, she would dump the guy as soon as she grew tired of them. I've heard that her husband was also someone she had stolen from another girl. When I thought about the possibility of Bishy going out with my husband, I knew it was greatly possible. So as Nancy advised me, in order to find proof of him cheating on me, I wanted to check his smartphones, but because there was confidential information from work in his phone that was unrelated to his affair, he locked his phone to prevent anyone from accessing it if he ever dropped it. So it was a challenge to unlock it. It might have been easy if it was just a password, but he had biometrics installed. So my husband was the only one who could unlock it. But now that I've already heard about it, I couldn't just sit back and relax, so I hired a detective. While I waited for the results, the only thing I could do was wait patiently. While later, my detective contacted me, so we decided to meet up. Then he was completely guilty. We found more than enough proof. I found out that he had been on a trip with her, pretending like he had gone on a business trip. For the past few months, my husband had told me that his parents got ill and disabled. So he asked me if he can send some of my salary from my part-time job to them, and I agreed. But that seemed suspicious as well. My husband also told me that if I called them, they'll feel apologetic. So he insisted that only he talk to them, and I never contacted them directly. Back then I understood his argument, but thinking back, nothing made sense. So a few days later I asked him about them, and just like I thought, they were nice and healthy. And he told me that he went to a hot spring with his father the other day. There's no way they're struggling to make ends meet and that they were disabled. I was so irritated about the fact that my husband had been telling me all these lies. But when I was thinking about how to punish him, my husband told me that he had to go on a business trip again that night. First of all, there is no way he has so many business trips this often, and knowing that he was just excited to go on a trip with his secret lover, I felt very frustrated. But I thought this was a good opportunity, so I decided to observe how he would act. The next morning, he looked excited to leave despite his supposedly going on a business trip, and I didn't miss him stealing my credit card from the shelves. He had used up all he can on his credit card, so I bet my credit card was handy because I preferred cash and rarely used my card. The next day after he went on his trip, or business trip as he would like to call it, my husband contacted me as I thought.
What's going on? Your card is restricted!
It was as if he called me, panicked that the card was restricted, but it seemed like he had completely forgotten about not telling me that he had brought my card with me, and he got really mad. So when I asked him why he brought my credit card with him, he finally seemed to understand and started mumbling excuses, so I decided to tell him the truth. I didn't want you to use my card on your trip with your secret lover, so I quickly had my card restricted on the day you left, and I no longer need your things, so I sent you. What are you saying? You're speaking nonsense. Where did you send my stuff to? I don't know. You'll find out soon enough. While we were on the phone, it seemed like Bishy also received a call at the right timing. The person on the phone was her husband, and he was furious, asking who the pile of stuff belonged to that suddenly got shipped to his house. And my husband found out that I was the one who sent it. He made a fuss on the phone and asked me to get his stuff back from Bishy's house quickly, but I ignored everything and hung up. I'll leave the rest of the fun to when he comes back. It looks like the both of them were panicking, and Bishy was going crazy asking what was going on next to my husband, and I heard her trying to explain to her husband desperately. So I knew things were pretty chaotic there. After that, they came home, but Bishy had to get a divorce now that her husband knew about her affair. Actually, I sent my husband's stuff to Bishy's house, but because Bishy lived with her parents at their house, not only her husband, but her parents also found out about her affair. Then they yelled at her to send my husband's things back to him. But I've declared to get a divorce with my husband, and this was the mansion I've always been living in since I was single, and it was under my name, so she couldn't send them back to me. So she had no idea what to do and cried so hard right there. But they kicked her out of the house, obviously, so all my husband's things were also dumped outside in their garden. By the way, in the case of my husband, I changed the keys to our room while he was on his trip, so he couldn't come back in. But I knew he would come over as soon as we got a divorce, so I was planning to move out as soon as I found a new place to live. After being kicked out, there was nowhere she could bring my husband's stuff to. So I heard her husband called for some help to get rid of all of them. Of course, he made her pay for everything that cost him. I obviously sent him the proof of their affair I got hold of after some investigation, alongside all his belongings, so she couldn't make excuses now. I heard that she apologized to him as she wept, but I guess she was finally being punished for what she's been doing. She had meddled with someone married, not just stealing someone's boyfriend this time. So I obviously made her pay me compensation money. Her husband will definitely make her pay the price as well. Bishy acted like nothing was wrong when she stole someone's boyfriend, but I bet she finally realized how much she had to suffer when she meddled with a married guy. It's too late, though. I didn't know how much her husband asked her for compensation, but she had no other choice but to move into a worn-out apartment. And because she had been living an affluent lifestyle, she was quickly forced to go through a rapid fall into poverty. She was a stupid girl, so I bet she thought she'll just find someone rich to support her financially, and she started dating another man. But it turns out he was married into the family of the large corporate owner. So they found out about their affair again, and they found themselves a great lawyer, demanding her to pay more than $100K as compensation. I bet she can barely afford to make a living now. Serves her right, though. On the other hand, my husband came begging for forgiveness.
I'm sorry. I was just playing around. You're the only one I love, so please forgive me. There's nowhere for me to go.
He begged. But I've already told my neighbors that I was getting a divorce because my husband cheated on me. So whenever they say to him, they would whisper about him cheating on me. And as the rumors spread, he was no longer able to step foot into the mansion. And there was a guy from his office who lived in the same mansion, so he told everyone at his company that he got kicked out after cheating on his wife. And the rumor quickly spread. Before I got a divorce, I obviously visited his parents to tell them everything, and now that they know that he not only had an affair, but they also got to know that he was using my money on her by deceiving me about his parents, so they were furious. And they told me that they'll break relations with him too. My husband had no idea what was going on, and he was unaware that I've told his parents about his spending as well. So he went back to his parents, but as soon as he got home, he was destroyed by his father. And as they had promised, they broke relations with him. My husband complained that it was all my fault for telling them the unnecessary details. But that was one of the reasons why we got a divorce, so it was obvious that I'll tell them about it. Maybe it was just like playing with fire for my husband, but from the perspective of someone who was cheated on, it's not something I could forgive so easily. I hope he understands what he had done and lives a life of hell from now on. My name is Sally. I live with my husband, Mike. My family was just ordinary, and my parents both loved me and my younger sister, Molly. But as we got older, my sister got more competitive against me, and by the time we were adults, we had grown apart. The reason for us growing apart was that she stole my boyfriend from me when I was in college. I struggled because my sister always wanted my things. But I never thought she'd want my boyfriend too, so I was shocked. When I wasn't at home, she invited him over, and I saw them being intimate on the bed. And that's how I found out that she had stolen him from me. What I saw back then had traumatized me. Since then, I started living alone, and I've cut ties with her. I heard from my parents that she got pregnant and married at 20. After I graduated from school, a year had passed working as a pharmacist. I started dating my husband when I was 23, and I got married at 25. Now, it had been 2 years since we got married. I thought we didn't have any problems with our marriage, living a normal life, but I felt like he had suddenly grown cold towards me, and I was confused. He used to come home straight after work and help me with housework, but he often comes home late now after going drinking. I was wondering what changed my kind husband so much, but then he told me he wanted to tell me something important, so I decided to leave work early and go home. When I got home, my husband was sitting on the sofa with a serious expression. "What did you want to talk about?" I started. Then he continued suddenly.
Can we get a divorce?
That was what he simply said. I was surprised and shocked with what he suddenly told me. Huh? What do you mean? What's going on? When I asked, he pulled something out of his bag. They were divorce papers. Are you serious? Why? When I asked,
I have someone else I love.
He answered. I was at a loss for words out of shock, but then my husband added,
I found a woman who was younger and makes more money than you, so just divorce me already. I'll pay you compensation money, okay?
He handed me a pen and certification stamp. My husband hated being at a loss and loved things with a good bargain. He's the type to go straight for it if it profits him, and I kinda understood when he told me that she makes more money than me. I couldn't process the information all at once, suddenly being demanded a divorce, but I was too shocked about him suddenly wanting a divorce, and my love for him quickly disappeared. So I filled in the divorce papers right there. Then my husband said,
Leave this house right now! My girlfriend is moving in with me starting tomorrow!
He rushed me to pack up my things. I made more money as a pharmacist than my husband, who was just an ordinary office worker. And I was the one who paid most of the living expenses, so I asked him if he would really manage after getting a divorce.
My girlfriend works as a charismatic hairstylist, and she makes much more money than you, so don't you worry. You're annoying me!
He said to me, so I followed what he said and left the house. I decided to move back in with my parents until I found a new place to live, and I explained everything to them. My parents were furious about my husband, and they happily let me stay at their house for a while. It took me some time to process what had happened so suddenly, and I was thinking on my own. But then I started feeling mad. I knew it was wrong to divorce him just as he asked, so I decided to make him pay compensation money. I wanted to make his new girlfriend pay as well, but I didn't know who she was and where she was. So my lawyer and I decided to just make my husband pay for the time being. One day after 2 weeks had passed, my husband suddenly gave me a call. I thought he wanted to talk about our compensation money, but I was surprised when I heard the reason of his call. To my surprise, as soon as I answered the phone,
I'm gonna get remarried,
he informed me. I was shocked. So what? I said.
Your ex-husband is getting remarried. You better give me celebration money.
He said something shocking. Huh? I couldn't help but shout.
Why are you so surprised? You make a decent amount of money. It shouldn't be a big deal.
He said. You have to be kidding. When I refused, he started being all mean, furious at me.
Let me tell you, my new wife is super young and pretty. She's still 20, so different from you. Oh, I'll send you a photo I took with her the other day via messages.
Like that, he sent me a picture with her for some reason. I didn't want to see it, but I opened the message app and then I saw someone I was used to seeing in the photo. I was too shocked to speak. The girl turned out to be my real sister. I remembered that my sister always wanted my things, and I knew this wasn't just a coincidence. So it made me laugh to know that my ex-husband was being played by her. When I was giggling, unable to hold back my laughter.
You see? Isn't she pretty?
He said to me, so I decided to tell him the truth. Hey, she's not 20. When I said to him as I held back my laughter.
Huh? What do you mean? You know her?
He asked me. Yeah, kinda. She's 26 now and jobless. When I told him.
Really?
He seemed shocked. I continued. And she got pregnant and married when she was 20, so she has a husband and child. When I said that to him.
Huh? She's married? No way! You're just jealous and lying to me!
He didn't believe me. It's up to you whether you believe it or not, but she's my younger sister. When I told him that, he was at a loss for words. I wasn't close to my sister, so my husband has never seen my younger sister before. So it seemed like he engaged in an affair, unaware that she was my real sister. Now that I knew who he cheated on me with, I decided to make her pay compensation money as well. I told my parents about it too, and they helped me out to send my sister the certificate of content. Then my sister quickly contacted me. Hey, you don't have to make me pay compensation money. She was panicked. When I asked what she wanted to do playing around with my husband, the reason was just what I thought. The reason was nonsense, because she wanted my things. After making me get a divorce, she was planning to dump him before me and my family found out. But because my ex-husband showed a photo of them to me, she was pretty shocked now that I had found out way earlier than planned. I felt nothing against my sister for ruining my household. Actually, I was emotionally stable enough to feel thankful for teaching me how stupid my husband was and being able to get a divorce with him. Don't let me pay compensation money and explain to my husband that the certificate is fake. We're real sisters, right? You wouldn't dare ruin your sister's happiness. My sister was making a fuss. I am breaking relations with you. Don't think of me as your sister anymore. I hung up after that. She kept on calling me repeatedly, but I ignored all of them and demanded compensation. Then her husband directly contacted me and told me that he wanted to know everything that happened. So when I told him, he got really mad and decided to make both of them pay for compensation money. After that, my sister had to look after her kid as a single mother, paying us compensation at the same time. And I heard she works part-time day and night. Even after getting to know that my sister was never serious with him, my ex-husband continued to flirt with her, stalking her. As a result, my sister went crazy and my ex got arrested for stalking her around. Regarding what happened, my parents also decided to break relations with her, and they cut her off, who came begging for help after becoming a single mother. In my case, I started living on my own independently, and now I live a very free life. Even if I did ever get remarried, I plan to be extra careful so that my sister won't find out. Nonetheless, all my family was able to cut relations with my sister, who had a horrible personality. So I think we'll be able to live peacefully for the rest of our lives. If my sister ever contacts me again, I will coldly cut her off just like my parents did. I have a sister who's 3 years younger than me, and she just got married. We're sisters, but we're not that close, to be honest. The reason is because of her problematic personality. My sister was always very selfish, and she had to get what she wanted. So my parents were struggling too. Until I left my parents' house, she would steal my clothes and accessories often, and she'll return it to me after making it dirty or breaking it. She was really untidy, and she's the type who can't put things back to where they were. Once I started working part-time in high school, she began stealing my money as if that was nothing. Of course, I told my parents about it, and they scolded her, but she never learned and repeated her mistakes. So after I entered college, I quickly left my parents' house, and I tried not to get involved with her after becoming an adult. But when I was about to get married, because my husband just started this new business... Huh? Oh, it's just that his position is a CEO. I bet he'll fail with his business, go into debt, and his life will be all over. She looked down on him. But once my husband was successful with his business, she started messaging me often and asking if she can borrow money. I ignored her, though. But for her wedding, she invited all her family and relatives. So we asked my husband's parents to look after our children for a while, and we both participated in her wedding. I was wondering what her wedding would be like as a spoiled kid she was. And as I expected, her wedding was extravagant. And her dress was also from a new collection. She changed into 3 different dresses. I know it cost her a lot. But it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, and I also discussed a lot with my husband when we had our wedding, and had many of my dreams come true, so I understood her, and her wedding was held successfully. A week later, they were having a meal with both of their families, and my husband and I were also invited. On the day when the families were eating at the table, my brother-in-law thanked everyone for their support to hold a successful wedding, and he expressed his gratitude. Then my sister cut in. What is there to thank us about? Why did Sis only give us $2,000 as celebration money? Everyone was shocked to hear that. Usually people would only give a couple thousand as celebration money. But my husband thought they were in need of money as newlyweds and decided to give them $2,000. The words that left my sister's mouth were so ridiculous that everyone there was taken by surprise. Then her husband said to her,
"What are you saying? They gave us $2,000. We should be more than thankful."
Huh? My brother-in-law is a CEO. $2,000 is not much for him. It's common sense for him to give us at least $10,000. She spat out. Everyone was honestly shocked at her words. It's true that my husband owned a business, but I usually never interacted with my sister. It's actually pretty unbelievable for him to give them $2,000, but what is she complaining about? I don't want to be rude, but I bet my husband gave them the most celebration money. So I was very thankful for what he did, but my sister said something like this. Then my mother also told her to apologize, but she never bothered to. Huh? Why do I have to apologize? I did nothing wrong. I had an extravagant wedding. It's no wonder that it cost a lot. It doesn't make sense for rich people to not pay much. She spat and also added, "Oh, and we decided to move into a new house, so apart from the celebration money, get us a new sofa, bed, and a dining table as celebration for building a new house." Then her husband had enough.
"Hey, stop it! You're being rude towards them!"
He said in a loud voice, but my sister didn't bother to listen and said that they should rely on us for their new furniture. and that they should save their own money for their honeymoon. I felt so sorry towards my husband for having such a rude sister like her. But my husband was so kind that he told me not to worry too much about it, and I felt even more sorry. My parents were scolding my sister, and her husband was also mad at her. But then his parents, who had been sitting down all this time, suddenly stood up. "I think we had a misunderstanding," she said, and asked if she can take back their decision of moving in with them into a 2-generation household. Then my sister kept asking them why, but I honestly think it's natural for them to react that way. Actually, in return for letting them move in with them, they agreed to build a 2-generation house for them. It's my sister. I bet she didn't think too much about moving in with them and was just overjoyed that she'll be able to live in a big house. As proof, she had been sending me many messages one-sidedly bragging about being able to live in a bigger house than me. But I bet her parents-in-law didn't want to move in with someone who lacks common sense like her. There's no use in doing something for my sister who wouldn't even say a word of thanks even if they did something for her. My sister was complaining to his parents about why they suddenly left and that they lacked common sense for suddenly deciding not to move in with them. She was making a fuss, and my father was furious about it, and it was pretty chaotic. Then my brother-in-law stood up.
"I've had enough,"
he said as he left his chair. He told my sister that he wants to cancel their marriage and said that as he stared down at her coldly. Then my sister got mad, saying she'll make him pay compensation money, and told him that she'll spread bad rumors about her so that he wouldn't be able to survive in this society. But my father yelled at her to stop, and she ended up crying. Everything was chaotic, and my mother apologized to my husband, so we decided to go home. A few days later, my sister called me, and it turns out that her husband really demanded for a divorce. And she started saying nonsense, that it was all because we didn't give her enough celebration money. According to my sister, she wouldn't have felt cranky if my husband had given her $10,000 as celebration money, and that her husband would have never gotten mad and demanded her for a divorce. She told me to pay her $50,000 as compensation money in return. I was getting a headache at this point, and I wondered why she could be this rude towards my husband. That was the final straw, and I told her that I'll cut relations with her. Then she went crazy on the other side of the phone and screamed why she had to go through all of this. She said her suffering was all our fault and that it was natural for us to take responsibility. But it was clear to everyone who was at fault. The day after our meal together, her husband actually visited us to apologize to my husband directly. He came over to our house and got onto his knees. My sister complained, but he told us that we gave them the most celebration money, as I thought. So when he got to know about it, he was very grateful. He apologized for what my sister said, and he even gave us all the money back. I think he had already made up his mind to get a divorce, but my sister never bothered to apologize to my husband. And she was a piece of trash who really believed that she had to get a divorce because we didn't give her $10,000 as celebration money. I had no second thoughts about breaking relations with her, so I hung up after telling her not to contact me ever again. When I told that to my parents, they even apologized to me. I heard about this after a while, but after her husband demanded a divorce, he made her pay compensation money. My sister seemed to complain about why she had to do that, but no one was on her side. And my parents also said they'll keep a distance from her. She had to go to court after that, but in the end, she lost, and including the expenses of her wedding, she had to go into a lot of debt to pay all the money. Of course, she was no longer able to live in the 2-generation house, and she also couldn't go back to our parents' house. So I heard she's renting in a worn-out apartment that costs a few $100s with a lot of debt. I bet she'll experience hell until she fixes her personality. But I've already broken relations with her, so it's none of my business now.
My name is Sean. I'm 23 years old and I'm an ordinary office worker. I don't make much money though, but my parents love gambling and they always go into debt. What makes it worse was that they both couldn't keep the same job for long. Apparently they were celebrities in the past. My mom was a model, and my dad also appeared on magazines as a model. Actually, I think they have strong visuals and great bodies compared to normal people. but it seemed like their habit of extravagant spending hasn't left them yet. I hated my parents for being like that, and after I graduated high school, I found a job and left their house. It was my grandparents who took care of me, but they both passed away when I was in middle school, so I felt nothing when I left their house. I got a call from my parents, and I visited them after a year and a half. I could have ignored them, but I thought I should pray for my grandparents once in a while. At the entrance, I asked my parents, "Just tell me what you want already. I bet you want to ask me for money again."
How dare you speak like that to your father?
Yes, you forgot how we took care of you all these years and never even bothered to visit us.
My parents yelled at me. "You neglected me, pushed all your responsibilities to your parents, but you call yourself a parent? Don't make me laugh. What did you do for me as my parents?"
See, we're treating you like our child right now. Your mother gave birth to you.
So you think being intimidating like a dad is what makes you worthy to call yourself a parent? And the reason why I don't visit is because I don't want you begging me for money so often.
Huh, it's not easy to cut ties with your parents. That's why you visited us today after we called you.
You're completely wrong. I'm here because I wanted to pray for my grandpa and grandma after a long time. I'm not here to meet you. Is that all you wanted to say? I'm gonna visit my grandparents and leave.
Nope, it's not over yet. There's someone I want you to meet.
Huh? Who are you talking about? My parents and I headed to the guest room. This house was built by my grandparents, and it was pretty spacious with a firm build. On the chair in the guest room, there was a woman I've never seen before. She looked around 20, and she was pretty fat. There were also several men standing around her who looked like they were her servants. I asked my dad, "Who the hell is she?"
How dare you speak like that to the person who'll be your future wife?
Huh? When I glanced at the woman, she lightly bowed.
Nice to meet you, Sean. No, we've actually met in the past, but it's a long time ago, so you might not remember. My name is Rose.
Rose? I tried to recall something from my memory, but I couldn't.
I might have some flaws, but I hope we can...
Wait a minute.
Huh?
I really don't understand what's going on. It looks like they lied to her about getting my consent to this marriage. After they lost in a gamble, they had no money, so they quickly agreed to Rose's offer to get married to me.
Get married to her right now! The dowry she's gonna pay us would be enough for us to live 10 years without working!
My dad yelled. My toxic parents were trying to make me marry this fatty because of their debt. You're horrible! This is basically human trafficking!
No, how dare you say that? It's just that the parents are arranging a marriage for their child.
Seeing me and my dad yell at each other, Rose said,
Would you not want to marry a fatty like me?
"No, it's not about your body. You might be a bit chubby, but you have beautiful facial features."
Wow, thank you so much. Or do you already have a crush on someone?
"No, I can accept this offer if we're gonna date each other before we actually get married." Then my dad suddenly cut into our conversation.
Hey, Sean, what are you saying? Just get married to her. We need the money.
Rose said to my parents,
This is our problem, but we're the ones who offered to pay a large amount of dowry, so we'll pay you the price right away. Even if we end up not getting married, you wouldn't have to return it to us.
Oh, then do whatever you want. I don't care about my son's marriage.
Then please sign this agreement form.
On the agreement form, it said that they agreed not to meddle with both me and Rose from now on, but my parents didn't even bother to read it. It looked like they could only think about the money they were about to get. I have some requirements too. You leave this house built by Grandpa and Grandma. I always hated how you lived in this house as if you owned it, although they were the ones who worked hard for it. This house is full of memories for me as well.
Huh! We don't want to live in such an old house as this anyways.
We came to an agreement. After praying to my grandparents, I left the house. I rode in the car with a driver and I headed to Rose's house. I greeted her parents there. They advised that I stay over the night. Rose visited my bedroom.
Then, let's do it.
As soon as she said that, while blushing, I thought, oh, my life is over. But it turns out...
Then, let's have a talk, shall we?
She said that. Then she started talking about her past. It turns out that she was living in the neighborhood and was bullied at school. And I was the one who stood up for her. She was now a full-grown adult, so she took action for her first love. After we started dating, she became happy, and she quickly lost weight. A big factor of her weight loss was her hard work to become a beautiful woman who deserved to be with me. I supported her throughout, and I jogged with her as well as calculated the calories when we ate. Within a year, because she had beautiful facial features, she turned into a glamorous beauty. By that time, I had fallen for both her hard-working personality and her beautiful appearance. After a year and a half of dating, we got married. One day, we ran into my parents when we were on a date.
Oh, Sean, what great timing! Give us some money!
What did you do with that dowry? I thought it was enough for you to live without working for 10 years.
We already used it up on gambling.
It's only been a year and a few months. I can't believe it.
I don't care. Just let us borrow $10,000 to start with.
Who would ever lend you money? Everyone knows you'll never pay me back.
Hey, you sure about that? You're cheating on your wife, aren't you? We can tell that fatty about it.
With a creepy smile, he looked at my wife. Huh?
I know you also married her for her money. It hasn't been long since you got married to her, but you're already cheating on her. If you don't want me to tell her that you're cheating on her with a glamorous beauty, give me money!
Nah, she's Rose.
Huh? You're that fatty? You look completely different, huh? You used to look so ugly.
No way, that fatty?
Both my mom and dad were shocked. I won't forgive you if you ever insult my wife. And you seem to have forgotten about it, but you signed the agreement. You agreed not to meddle with us anymore.
You're cutting ties with your parents, you horrible son!
Serves you right. Goodbye. I ignored my parents' begging, and we left the scene. To pay back their debts, I heard they're reluctantly working night jobs. I think it suits them very well for them who made fun of others' appearances and bragged about their looks all the time. Looks like they still spend money extravagantly, so I bet they'll be in a loophole of debt for the rest of their lives. I got involved in a car accident on my way to work and was hospitalized for 3 weeks due to the injury. I was never hospitalized this long, but when I called my work, they said that it's great that I was alive and that I should take a good rest for the recovery. It was a relief to hear that, but I had a problem with home. I asked my wife Nora to bring my clothes and stuff, but at one point I couldn't get in touch with her during the day. I mentioned it to her and she said,
Huh? Do I have to tell you everything I do? You sound like a stalker. It's creepy.
I was shocked that she called me a stalker, but my worries about her whereabouts during the day remained. But I was still in the hospital bed and not free to do anything. I had to ask Nora for certain things. So even though she was mean to me, I had to beg her to do things for me. One day I couldn't get in touch with her again. This time was long. It was for 3 days. I was frustrated at first, but I began to worry about her. Maybe she fell and couldn't move at home or something. Once the thought clouded my mind, I couldn't stay still and was going to ask the nurse for permission to leave for a few hours. Then somebody knocked on the door. My subordinates came to visit me. It was nice of them, but I couldn't shake off my worries about Nora and told them honestly what was going on and what I was going to do. Then all of them suddenly stopped smiling. They looked at each other and seemed to be contemplating whether they should tell me what they knew or not. After a pause, one of them told me something that shocked me. He told me that he saw Nora and my subordinate together in a car on the day I couldn't get in touch with her. He thought he was wrong at the time, but after what I told them, he thought maybe he wasn't wrong. The subordinate's name was Russ, and he often didn't listen to me despite his position. He came over with others when we had a housewarming party at our newly built house. They saw each other then, but I couldn't really believe that was the beginning of the two having an affair. Yet it was true that I lost contact with her on the day they were seen in a car together. He apologized for telling me that, even though there was no hard evidence, but I was rather thankful. When they left, I called her again and again. After several attempts, she finally answered the phone. I went straight to the point and told her somebody saw her and Russ together. I was anxious about how she would react, but she readily admitted it.
It's true, because I'm more attracted to Russ than to you, so let's divorce.
What? What are you talking about?
I'm serious. I'm going to divorce you, who has no prospect of the future, and start my new life with Russ.
Then she hung up the phone. I was angry and miserable and couldn't sleep a wink that night. Then the next day, I got a call from Russ, so I was prepared for the serious talk before answering. But he said something unexpected and panicked. "Boss, your wife is dead!" "Huh? I'm sorry! What are you talking about? Explain to me!" He said when they were back from the trip, they got involved in a car accident. Nora was all bloody and she wasn't conscious when EMT arrived. "Which hospital?" "It's Revenge Hospital," which was the very hospital I had been in. I hung up the phone and told the nurse what I just heard. She took me to where Nora was. I expected to be taken to a morgue or something and anxious, but she was still alive, although in critical condition. I was relieved. At the same time, Russ arrived and realized he jumped to the conclusion and lost himself. A few days later, she regained consciousness, but it turned out she was paralyzed below the waist and had to live in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. I wasn't really shocked to hear that, because I was already determined to divorce her since her affair became clear. Her cruel words were still lingering in my head, and I couldn't bring myself to rethink the divorce just because she was in a terrible condition. Her parents were happy that she was saved, but I told them about the situation and that I couldn't take care of her. Her mother collapsed to the floor. Her father slowly said, "I'm sorry about my daughter." He couldn't say any more, and I felt his pain too. Her parents told her about her condition. I was outside the room.
Why? You're lying. I can't walk forever? No!
She was kicking and screaming, but even with that, I couldn't be sympathetic to her. After a while, I was discharged from the hospital and went back to work. Everyone welcomed me back, but I didn't see Russ there. They said he was fired. Russ was having an affair when he had a fiancée, but this accident and his affair were revealed to his fiancée and her family, and they called off the engagement. His fiancée was the daughter of our company's VIP, and our CEO was also invited to the wedding. The CEO was furious when the whole thing was open, like nobody ever saw him that angry before. They terminated the contract with our company, and the CEO was humiliated. Russ was sued by the company, his fiancée, and me where it could be worse than the hellhole. The accident was certainly unfortunate. I thought I could never forgive Russ, but if it were not for their affair, this accident wouldn't have happened. I'm not laughing about the accident, though. It's really complicated. If Russ was still working in the same office as if nothing had ever happened, I didn't know how I would act, so not seeing him anymore was a sure relief for me. They got punished from above without me doing anything. I went to Nora with the divorce papers in my hand. She said,
You still love me. I clearly know that you are the one. I'll love you forever. The way ahead of us might be the hard one, but we can overcome it together.
No, you'll overcome alone. I just stopped by to give you the divorce paper that you wanted. I said it and put the paper before her. She opened her eyes wide and said,
Are you serious? You're abandoning me when I can't walk?
Look at yourself. It's karma. Your parents know this too. You just need to sign and we'll go from there. When I left the room, I heard her loud cry, but I didn't look back. After a while, I got a short email from Nora's mother stating the divorce papers were accepted. She also told me a little about Nora. She has been hysterical and taking it out on her parents every day. It's been difficult for them, too. They took her in because of her condition, but they're planning to let her live alone. It'll be hard for her to live independently, and she may not want to live, but she sowed the seeds, and I don't feel sorry for her. At my workplace, we were all getting along, and I didn't have any complaints about my work, except I had a nightmare boss. His name was Burke, and we all hated him. He was arrogant and didn't listen to anybody. He didn't pay attention to anything others told him, but later he would be angry saying he never heard that. It was always us who got in trouble. But he was still our boss, and we couldn't confront him directly. Knowing that, he behaved as he liked. At that time, I was working on some documents that Burke assigned me. It was for a big project, but there was still time before the deadline, so I made a schedule for myself to work on it to improve with details. But one day, Burke told me to submit it abruptly. I told him that there were days until the deadline and that it hadn't been completed yet. Shut up! The meeting is today and I need it! Excuse me? I don't understand. Are you saying the meeting is today? Nobody heard that. Had I known it, I could have finished it by today. He seemed to misunderstand the date. It was his fault, but he yelled at me with rage. How come it's not ready? You're useless! What have you been doing every day? Right back at ya. He never listened to anybody and played games on the phone at his desk, or when he went out, he would go to a cafe to read comic books. I also heard he stole the credibility of other people's work. I was angry at him, but the documents were not ready anyway. But he just grabbed the unfinished materials, thinking it would be better than nothing, and headed to the conference room. An hour later, he came back and threw the unfinished materials at me. This is garbage! How dare you embarrass me like that in front of everybody? They also told me to postpone the contract. How are you going to make up for it? Answer me! But like I said, the deadline was days away. I was working on it with more details. Don't you talk back to me, you useless worker! Be prepared, because I'll be carefully considering your punishment! Then he downgraded my bonus rating to the lowest D just days later. I was upset and furious, of course, but he had the authority to do this, and there was nothing I could do about it. But I had someone who listened and comforted me. It was my fiancée, Nina. Nina and I have been together for 2 years, and we were getting ready for our wedding. We had meetings with the wedding planner several times by then. Nina helped me to relieve a lot of stress at work, namely Burke's harassment. I didn't have a good boss, but I got a great partner. So even though things were bad at work, I was always happy at home. And we happily and safely had our wedding, despite a minor disturbance. The Monday after the wedding, Burke came to my desk with a grin on his face. I canceled your wedding! You must have been miserable and embarrassed! Serves you right! Our wedding is over, but so is your life here. What? I ruined your wedding! The cancellation that he was talking about was a minor disturbance with our wedding. A week before our scheduled wedding, the venue staff called Nina to confirm the cancellation. I was busy with work, so Nina was basically communicating with the planner. But the call was from a man, and the planner wasn't familiar with the caller's voice, so she called Nina to double check. Of course, we didn't make that call, so we told them about it and carried on as scheduled. And we had a great wedding day. But we couldn't figure out the caller except that it was a man, and Nina was afraid. But I vaguely suspected Burke. I talked about my upcoming wedding with them at work, and I didn't invite Burke, but he could easily ask them about the date. Now he knows that we had our wedding safely. He seemed dissatisfied, but questioned me about what I said to him, that his life's done. I didn't say anything then, but as he was leaving for the day, the CEO's secretary called Burke and me into his office. He had no idea he was called, but once we stepped in his office, it became clear.
You! How dare you try to ruin my niece's wedding?
Your niece? I don't know what you're referring to, sir. Burke panicked when he heard it was the CEO's niece. Then the CEO made it clear. Nina was the niece of the CEO, and she chose the wedding venue, and I told him that it was almost canceled. The venue was pretty sought after and booked up for many months, but Nina's father asked the CEO for his connection so we could book it. And Burke canceled that casually. Since then, the CEO himself was looking for the culprit who was trying to ruin his niece's wedding. Then the culprit revealed himself voluntarily. Burke became pale while listening to the CEO's story and made an excuse, saying, "It's not what you think." But when she found out someone was trying to cancel our wedding, she was really shocked and scared, thinking someone was trying to break us up. So of course I was angry too. The CEO was the same, so when he found out the culprit was inside the company and in front of him, he was infuriated and fired him on the spot, saying that he didn't want anyone who intentionally tried to damage other people's happiness. He attempted to ruin my wedding and made me miserable, and didn't imagine it would come right back to haunt him and get him fired. He panicked and begged me to help him out. Burke asked me why I didn't tell him I was the family of the CEO, but I told all the other people in the company whom I invited to our wedding, and she was not a daughter but a niece, and I didn't see the need to announce that. And I had no intention of forgiving him for what he did, so I just ignored him. Later, it became open that Burke had purposely lowered my bonus rank and blamed somebody else for his mistake, and I was evaluated properly. Burke was married, but he was the same himself at home. As he lost his job, his wife got fed up with him and left him to divorce. He was also sued for moral harassment by his wife. But he deserved it when he tried to ruin somebody else's wedding. Now he's lost his job, money, and family and was left to live alone somehow. But I can only say, justice was served.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.